Welcome back. In the days following the deadly attack during a white nationalist rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, people across the country are coming together in opposition of hate. And there's a lot of conversation over Confederate monuments. Here locally, the president of the Jacksonville City Council wants to remove all Confederate monuments from public display. Ana Lopez Broche says the monument should be moved and taken to museums. Governor Rick Scott also weighed in on the matter.
My goal is that hatred, bigotry, racism should not be in our society. But with regard to monuments, those are decisions that should be made through a local process.
So what would that local process be? Joining us now to discuss, we welcome legal contributor, attorney Seth Pajcic. Thank you so much for being here and helping us clarify a lot of the clutter that we've heard over the last few days. Yeah. So these monuments have been around for years. Why is it within the last decade or so has it really been a hot topic to get rid of them?
Well, I think you have to first look at the historical context of these monuments. These monuments came about in two main waves. The first wave was right about the turn of the century, 1900. And there's an important Supreme Court decision that came out right at that time, Plessy v. Ferguson, which basically said, the South, you can have segregation, separate but equal. But it wasn't equal. We all know that. So you can have separate facilities for black people, separate facilities for white people. At that point, the southern states started implementing these laws, these Jim Crow laws, saying they're reasserting themselves after Reconstruction. And all those Civil War monuments started going up. So that's actually when Hemming Plaza, the Hemming Monument, went up. Then you had a second wave right after Brown versus the Board of Education, which then they said, no, you have to desegregate. Plessy v. Ferguson is wrong, you have to desegregate. The South was trying to hold on. So then you had a second wave of monuments. So those are the two big waves. So if you look at why these monuments went up, it was really for the South to reassert themselves, and it's for race. This isn't to honor Confederate soldiers. This was really, it was about race at its core. And I think as society has gone on and where we are now, we've evolved to the point where we're like, well, really, why are these monuments put up? And we're saying maybe they shouldn't be there. They shouldn't be in the public plaza. We shouldn't put traitors, which really what these people are. They're traitors. They took up arms against the United States. And we shouldn't be putting them up on pedestals in our public plazas. Rather, they belong in museums, like the city council president said.
Well, let's fast forward to now, well, a little before now, and how and what actual process we have to go through, or somebody goes through, to take these things down, to have them removed, to have them erased, basically.
Well, right here, the city council can vote, and as long as the mayor signs it into law, or like he did with the LGBT issue, he just cannot, he doesn't have to sign it, but he doesn't veto it. And that can become law, and then the city council can remove these monuments. It is a local issue, and in most places, if the city wants to remove them, they can remove these monuments.
But I mean, is it somebody like Jane Doe that just says, you know what, I'm just going to start a petition and have 100 people sign and take it to our governor and see if they'll get it removed? How does it happen?
They could, yes. The city council could pass a law, the governor, the legislature could pass a law. There's no, I wouldn't say there's a specific way you have to do it, but the city council can do it, the governor can do it, the president could probably do it. I mean, there's some separation of powers issues, but it's really a local issue. It's something the local government should take up. And that's what you see going around all around the country. The mayor of New Orleans, he took down the Confederate monuments there, and that's what happened in Charlottesville. The city council there, that's what prompted what happened in Charlottesville. They were going to take down the Robert E. Lee Monument.
So they don't have to let the public know, per se, if this is going to happen. In Baltimore, they did it overnight.
Yes.
So this is not something...
The mayor there took an executive action.
Okay.
Said, we're going to take these down. The mayor here could probably do that.
Okay.
You could have some people try to sue him, but I don't know how successful he would be. There's a lot of power that resides in the mayor, especially in this city. We have a very strong mayor. So the mayor could probably do it if he wanted to.
Do you think it's just a matter of time before all of the monuments come down for the Confederacy?
I don't know. I think it's going to, I think in Florida, yes, I think they're going to be coming down. But I think there's different parts of the South, obviously, and it's going to take some time to get them down. But I think in 100 years, 50 years, I think it's going to be hard to, I don't think you're going to see that many more Confederate monuments.
It seems like, because you mentioned the LGBTHRO being passed, that took several city council sessions, several years, so it'll most likely be the same process for this, if we go the route of city council voting on it.
Well, the good way, I think the good thing about the city council and having the city council vote on it is it's the people's representatives are voting on it. It's not the mayor acting in the middle of the night doing something. These are the people's representatives making a vote to say, our community is not going to stand for these monuments that are really, to a large segment of our community, just symbols of hate. We're going to put them in museums. People, we should not hide this history. People should learn about this history. It's important. But they shouldn't be on pedestals in the public square.
That is so unfortunate that people are thinking that it's rewriting history just because you don't want them in these public places. But now that Jacksonville has kind of joined in on the discussion of getting those taken down, and we've got a map that shows where we still have some Confederate monuments up around the area. Do they all come down at one time, or is it we'll start taking it apart here, here, here? Like how is it going to unfold for Jacksonville?
Because we see that most of them are right there in downtown. There's 4. There's about 3 in center of downtown, 2 in Springfield, 1 kind of off to the northeast, or a couple off to the northeast.
Well, I think obviously that's just going to depend on what the city council decides to do, how they decide to get rid of them. I think you would start with Hemming Plaza. That's the center of our city. And in fact, it was initially St. James Park. And then Charles Hemming was a Confederate soldier and spy, and he donated money to erect the statue, and then it became Hemming Park. And they put up the statue in 1896, I believe.
We could see that park get renamed. That's
it could,
it.
It could be, yes, it could go back to being St. James Park, which is what it used to be, as opposed to being named after Charles Hemming.
Well, instead of, because I feel if we wanted to put these monuments in a museum, we would have to build one, first of all, because I don't think there's any one locally that we can put them in. But there's already Confederate Park, which is in Springfield. What do you think the likelihood is of moving these monuments to Confederate Park?
That, again, that's a public place. I think there is a Southern Museum. I've seen it. It's on the west side. I don't know if they could fit all these, obviously all these. But there's other museums also that they could go to, that you could put them in. There is different ways you could house them. I don't know. I don't think they should, in my opinion, they shouldn't be in a public place. You could put them in cemeteries, things like that, where people can learn about history. Look, when you're in Berlin, you don't see statues of Adolf Hitler, right?
Right.
But you can go to museums and learn about the Nazis, and you should be able to go to museums and learn about the Confederates if you want to. But they shouldn't be on the, like I said, in a public pedestal.
Is it still destroying property if someone were to take it upon themselves?
Yes.
To take
Do
it
not
down?
do that. That is a bad idea. Do not go out and destroy it yourself. You will go to jail.
Yeah, what is it, besides, is there a fine on top of that if you took, because I think there was another city, I can't remember what it was, but there were video of people
Durham, North
down.
Carolina. In Durham, North Carolina, they did that. It is defacing public property. You shouldn't do it. You'll go to jail. Let the government take its course, and ultimately they'll do the right thing.
Well, the process sometimes worked, because we saw it took Nathan B. Forrest High School to be renamed. It took a long time, but it worked.
The process does work, and you got to give the process time. The worst thing you can do, if you go out and start tearing down these statues, then we'll have a scene like they did in Charlottesville right here in Jacksonville. Let the process work. Let's do it the right way, not do it the wrong way.
Totally. Well, we've also heard a lot of talk about the 25th Amendment over the last few days. What is the 25th Amendment, and how does that affect President Trump, or what people are hoping happens to President Trump?
Well, the 25th Amendment came about after John F. Kennedy was assassinated. And in President Trump's context, the way it actually would work is, say, if Vice President Pence and the majority of the cabinet sent a letter to the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House and said, President Trump is not fit for office. He cannot discharge the duties of the office. Then, at that point, Vice President Pence would become acting president. President Trump could challenge it. He could say, no, I am fit. And then it would go to the House and the Senate. Each chamber would have a vote. If 2/3 of the House and 2/3 of the Senate agreed with Vice President Pence, then Vice President Pence would remain acting president for the rest of President Trump's term. So not just some random person. It has to be the Vice President and his cabinet.
Wow. How likely is it that would happen? Because we've heard plenty of people talking about how they're saying impeach the president immediately. He doesn't know how to.
Impeachment's a different issue. You can be impeached for high crimes and misdemeanors or treason and bribery. As we have right now, I don't see where President Trump's committed an impeachable offense. And as far as the 25th Amendment, again, that's going to take Vice President Pence and the cabinet. If they looked at that tape yesterday and said, well, these were the rantings of a madman who's not fit to hold office, then Vice President Pence and the cabinet could take action. But that's up to them, and I'm not going to predict what they're going to do.
Well, thank you for clearing up a lot of these conversations that so many of us have been having over the last few days.
Sure.
And we'd like to thank our legal contributor, Seth Pajcic of the law firm Pajcic Pajcic. And coming up next,